Hey everybody, this is a new episode of What If Deku Had a Destroyer Quirk. And no, I'm not talking about like Ares' rewind quirk or the bullet kind, so don't worry. But there is one thing. This is my version, so he can be overpowered. So this is part zero first of all. And let's begin. First, the let's do whatever the YouTubers do. Link is in the description of what I really meant to say. Okay, so let's begin. The once upon a time there was this, or when Deku was born with this quirk. When he was born, he had a quirk. Instead of going into a normal way, the into his toe, it formed from his head. So Deku, sorry, Deku was, when he was 4 years old, Inko and Hastashi, or whatever his name is, took him to a quirk doctor. And the quirk doctor looked at the x-ray for his foot thing, or like Deku's, if they had a quirk or not. And he said to them, "Sorry, Mr. and Mrs. Midoriya, your son is quirkless." And they can't believe that he was quirkless. So they so Inko and Itachi had agreed to put him in a caregiver's thing. But later that week, they didn't notice, but he they he but the cottage where Deku was at ran out of money and ran out of business. They so he was at there for a very long time, like living at there. So they decided to say, "Hey, I'm only 10 years old." That's what Deku is saying to himself. And he was living on his own, so I know normal people can't handle that and stuff, being on their own. And he says, "Well, this bummer." And later that day, he had so many thoughts going into his head, he exploded. Not killing him, but separating him into 4 different Dekus. Sorry. There was, but Deku didn't realize that there was 6 different versions of himself. There was Blue, that was him, but he was more calmer than this one. Red was, I'm still thinking, was the him. He was, so all of them, like, based off of the Infinity Stones, of course, what was a good overpowered thing, and to bring in to my what if is the, so all six of them were looking at each other like, do I know you? And they were just weird. And so they all had the same birthday, same day, same year thing, but they had different powers. Like the blue, sorry, don't worry, I'm not. The blue had space power, red had reality, yellow had. Sorry, I had an itch on my ear, so. So then. So they. Or Yellow explained what really happened. Because he's a brain of a bunch. That's what their code names are. So instead of saying Deku, who 1 and 2 and 3, name one. So Deku Yellow or Yellow said, I might have the answer for that. As he explains that it was all because of his emotions and all of the memories, like, all activated all at once. So that's what S6 are created from. And, sorry, let me do this real quick. So Blue, who said, wow, that's cool. And Yellow had the same hair color, or they all have the same skin color and the hair, but different hair colors. But that's, they were talking, and then they, some reason, when all of them hit 15, they all were wanted to go to UA. Of course, before I get ahead of myself, don't worry. Before it got ahead of myself, they all trained their quirks or their powers, and they said, "This a power thing?" And yes, the red jumped to that question, and Deku, or all of them, wanted to be joining UA. So, but then Deku decided to, or out of nowhere, there was a meteor, or some people thought it was a meteor, or they actually got in, and my phone was being stupid, so gonna scroll past. And don't worry about these ones, these are just Yu-Gi-Oh cards. So, and in the faraway galaxy one, sorry, there was a lot of, or on one planet, in it, like far away, had a lot of like females and boys, but boys got wiped out by something. So the females detected the power source thing, and they decided to send 3 people: a queen and her sisters, or her, not her sisters, her 2 daughters. And the all 3 of them went into a same life pod things, or 3 different life pods. They all 3 of them go into the one world on the original My Hero Academia world, Earth, but there was a 4th one coming from a robot world where the robot called himself a destroyer, wanted to kill that power source, and or that whoever's emitting that much power. And or you'll probably be insane, hey, whoever you are, or Chaz, did you say, I said jazz, so that, okay? So they all, there was 4 crash landed onto My Hero Academia world. The robot came out of the sea and starts looking for that power source. So then all the pro heroes, including All Might, were defeated because the robot was like laughing at them for like, haha, you can't defeat me because I am superior. And I know it sounds like Soundwave, but no, trust me, it's not. So then the deku was like, or all 6 dekus those had, so they, or all 6 of them were at his, or at the abandoned, I forget what that's called. Eh? Abandoned area, that cottage, abandoned cottage that was not abandoned. He just, or all 6 of them fixed it up with their own quirks. And so the robot that I was talking to you about was actually You just saw it a couple minutes ago. It was him. I know, but the other ones that are Yu-Gi-Oh cards, yeah. So he was laughing at those superheroes, and they. So he detected the most powerfulest thing. So that he goes over to it, and all the Midoriyas at a time were like, uh, let's. What is that? All six of them, but they didn't realize that they could fuse together. So when they got close to each other, the all six of them became one entity, and they his power level went from 50%, or like, I don't know what the percentage of All Might, but it's 1 million punch, or 1 million% was not compared to its power level. So then the robot turned and looked at him and says, "Ah, here you are." And he starts attacking, but the fused form of Deku, the one that you see on the screen. Let me get to it. The him, he just decided to, or his body, when he couldn't control himself, so he one punched him so hard, the entire robot exploded on impact, killing that robot instantly. And then he walked back to his house, or his cottage, and the it was just kind of weird. And so those three girls that I said were humanoids ones. They looked more like they had the same skin and that other stuff as Deku. Who and he so all three of them um went, or they were trying to find a power source thing, where so they stumbled upon a abandoned cottage. Not cottage cheese, don't worry, it's the building. So then, so Deku and his fused form was cooking up something, and he starts noticing there was three girls, or three, yeah, girls, that are about the same age as him. And because he answered the door, and so they, all three of them, wanted him to fix their world. And they did. So Deku, who decided to say, oh, well, that's okay. They all fix it. As he says, stay here to, yeah, as he super jumps. Kind of like All Might, but, or kind of like a rocket just launched out of, from the ground, kind. And he flew all the way to their homeworld, and used all of his power to fix their homeworld thing, and he came right back to it in about a few seconds. That's pretty fast, you might say. But the Deku, or the, when after he returned, they, or the girls, those three girls, wanted to, of course, they said thank you and all that stuff. And they were asking him out on a date. As they said, of course, he says sure. And so they, or he says, hope you don't mind the 5 versions of me, or the 6 different versions of him, of me. That's what he's saying. And they are confused. Like, we're not confused, but they know that the infinity power, or, and so he just separated into 6 SIX, just to be safe. Okay? And he, or so they went on this romantic date thing. The queen with, and her 2 daughters. I don't know how they, I don't know how she had 2 daughters in the first place, but they, yeah. So they decided to go sleep with them. Like, because there was some reason in the middle of the night they were partying all night and they had a weird stuff. And so then when, so all of them woke up and they had, were, believe it was 6 children's. The, because one of the, our queen explained the, our our abilities that allows us to, oh, like go a little bit faster thing and all that. So they had was six or five girls and one guy out of all that because each one slept with two different ones. So so they had was or one of the boys was basically looked similar to a Hulk, but with a mustache and or actually looks just like a Hulk, but without his green skin. He was more of the human, and the others five were had different powers. Before I get too ahead of myself, their brother, technically would be their brother, had mind and soul. Oh, and then one of them, the beautifulest one, was she had was space and reality, and I'm just explaining it to you real fast. So both of them, of course, because the daughter of the queen, in in daughter of the queen, hmm, slept with the red Deku, the one that looks just like Deku, but he had red head and red eyes. And the blue Deku, the one that I showed you earlier, the hold on, him turned into a calm girl. Then that was one out of five. So, or two OP, two of their kids, and the other four was had most overpowered quirks. Like the forget what they're called. The uh, yeah, single one, the same thing as like a daughter, but she had time and power. It's a quirk thing, and there would it be? Sorry, I had stepped my toe on the floor. So their technically would be their fourth daughter would be has the or actually the three main ones, and then but Deku or three Dekus, and the other three accidentally turned into light and dark versions of themselves, and they both had to new children's. You might be wondering, how would that be possible? And if you've seen a picture of them on like a YouTube or something, sorry, I'm trying not to say the G word. And the I know it's not a bad word, but just like say it and sing. Okay? So 3, so they had 2 kids that had same powers as their parents, as their fathers. And then they both accidentally fused together again to create the destroyer. Huh? So they sorry, I'm doing something at a moment, so there we go. So they just so then the queen of it was actually had another child thing, and her name was chaos, and or chaos or I was gonna say chaotic, but then someone might from probably back then had chaotic cards back then. But this is the female version and not a card game version. So don't get confused. So Deku, you know, in his destroyer outfit, this is like the kind of like his destroyer outfit, but 10. And he sorry, my brain's having so they because after all he's going to do like exam thing, or actually he did, or they got in, or he got in, and after he walked into class 1A, because he got first place in the exam, and Deku, who was, you know, he was in class 1A with Todoroki and all of them. And when he first arrived, every girl just looked at him like wanted to date him, actually. And so he got tripped up and he got saved by Ochako. And so she got embarrassed. And so he got raised right. So he says, thank you. And he just became late. So actually, because they, eh? So every girl that was in class 1A was so shocked that Deku got first place. Todoroki got so mad at him for getting the first place instead of him. And they were, because I know he kind of looks like a weird, but Idatinya respects him a lot. And he was doing all that stuff, and he orders his villains thing, because he's actually, when during that ball throw thing, he just like threw it so hard, and ends up he looked at Mr. Aizawa, and Mr. Aizawa getting error, unnatural ability, error, and so he got, like, he passed the exam thing, Quirk exam thing, whatever, and he actually, like, then going to, sorry if I'm moving a little bit faster, so he, or Mr. Aizawa told Deku to go to USJ. He did, and before class even started. So he, so they, like, so he did it, and he met 13. Or actually, 13 was hours way behind him. So he, so they, or so he saw was a dark figure, and he kidnapped him, or Deku kidnapped that villain, and ends up putting him in a portal thing, like his own portal dimension, and Deku was like, then 13 came and starts explaining stuff to Deku first before, and Deku was like, yeah, it's interesting. And 13 was started to blush because she actually never had someone compliment on her speech before, as then the rest of them showed up, and then when they showed up and they or 13 explained what they were gonna do thing, a smoked portal, or smoky portal, popped out of nowhere, and all the villains walked out, and so did the Nomu. So Deku said, that's not fake heroes or fake villains. They are real. As he turns and to look at Idatinya, and he says, "Do you trust me?" As he says, "Yes." Go warn the others. As he bolts right out of there, and Deku, him, was holding everyone back with his power. Or and don't worry about his fingers. He has four, but the other ones are, you could see. And Deku was so, like, told Mr. Aizawa to step back from that area as he throws like a fireballs or powerball at the Nomu, because the Nomu at that time was pretty powerful, so that he was designed to kill All Might and All for One. So, but I know All for One is not a good guy, but so he grabs, or he used his time quirk, grabbed Eraserhead, and like put him at the side of the door. If All Might, or he knows that All Might can bust right through, and the sludge villain before was in at USJ. So instead of like in canon that Deku was walking home one, no. But Deku won that round pretty easy. He just beat all the villains with, and they took a week off, or actually 2 weeks off, when after they came back to school. And Mr. Aizawa said to Deku, "Thank you, Deku." And because of all that stuff, and he actually was going to, the sports festival thing. He told, or he, after he came back to his house thing, the children weren't, or they were doing their homework thing, like schoolworks. They weren't even at school. And they, so Deku and was like, "Hey, I'm home. Welcome home." As one of the girls just was the first ones finished before. And they started like tackling him. And so then after that, the Bakugo, who got one for all because of All Might, and All Might decided to choose Bakugo as his successor. And the so Bakugo and so because Bakugo was really best friends with Deku for a really long time, and he wasn't being mean or any of that, but so Deku was that he didn't heard that Deku had a family, so so Deku was act super nice to him, and so they like I know what this Quirk or actually Deku was like, of course, 2 weeks have passed, and he was prepared. And for it, so he says, "Make sure you watch me on the big screen." As they're like, "What do you mean?" Or they're like, "Oh wait, is it the sports festival thing?" Yep. And so he went super fast, and it was early, super early. So not even the teachers were out, or not even at their classrooms. Sorry, I had to just blow my nose real quick. So, and then Deku, of course, Bakugo was singing to entered, and or actually Mr. Aizawa, sorry, Eraserhead, walked to Deku and says, "You're pretty powerful for a 15-year-old." They're like, "Yeah," or he says, "Yeah, but hey, I keep my quirk. I actually do have a quirk." As he lifts his hands up and he points to his forehead and he says, "My quirk formed it from my head." And as Mr. Aizawa was shocked that what Midoriya was different from, or the quirk, or his quirk was born, or when he was born, it was inside of his head first. Like the, you know how like there's a back part of your brain, the one that's holding both sides of your brain together. Yeah, it formed from that, and moving all the way down to the your heart, or down Deku's is spine to his heart thing. And Mr. Aizawa finds that amusing. Like, as he says, "Well, as normal, there's a normal way." Sorry, I was just picking my notes. So, the normal way was the through your foot all the way to your brain thing. But yours is different. And he said, "Yeah, and don't worry, this is a guy, boy, before anyone starts asking, because it looks like a girl from far away." So they, so then other classmates showed up, and he, they were start talking to him like, what is his quirk, and he he's told them, "I have this quirk called Destroyer Quirk, or Chaos Quirk. More, I call it Destroyer Quirk because, and don't worry, it's a different kind of quirk than you're thinking about. Like, oh, the he's just ripping off of the Marvels is, or Thor against that Iron Dude, or not Iron Man, but the Golem. No, 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 no. This is my version, so don't worry. So Deku compliments them like, "Wow, your quirks are pretty powerful for the rest of you." As he then go to a sports festival, I'm skipping that part because we all know who would win, Deku. But before, just a little bit of the Midnight told or asked Deku to come on and give a speech, and he says to the audience that, and I'm gonna be, I'm a man of my words, but I'll say this: I'll be the number one in this sports festival, cause and they're like, because he was being honest with them, um, and so they he so they and then he spoke the truth. So Deku won first place in a race, cavalry battle, and the whatever it's called, the fights one battle, and All Might gave Deku number one. Todoroki was second. Bakugo was third, but Bakugo had no regrets. He, so they, all of them. So then they went back, and then they were like craziness, and Inko was watching because back then, way before, when Histashi and her, or her husband and her, were decided to like abandon their son because they thought he was quirkless, and they said that, wow, Midoriya, this, and they totally forgot about Midoriya. So they had another child, was Azumi, and she was a same quirk as their, or she had fire manipulation. So I'm grabbing a picture of what Azumi would look like if hmm the picture her, just a picture Deku, his sister as her. Her. And she doesn't even, or she was like, oh, I'm just gonna, of course, she was actually going to the same age, or she was the same age as Deku, so they, oh, that's what she looks like. And so they, yeah, of course, then skip over to the or whatever those are called, find the agencies. So Deku got overwhelmed, and but his hero name is called Chaos, or actually Destroyer, and Deku was named that after his quirk, and he chose actually Todoroki haven't really truly introduced himself to Deku yet. So he walks over and says to Deku, and he says, "May I make a suggestion?" As Deku says, "Sure." The How about you should join Endeavor's agency? You seem like a more of like a battle type. Sure. As as he says, as long as he doesn't mind my separate personalities things. As the entire class looks at him saying, "What do you mean?" As Mr. Aizawa was like said the you have a separate or personalities like multiple. So as he kind of like Inditchu thing, and Deku, or they see different Dekus. Purple was actually was cheerful, like come on, let's go, let's roll. And as they all fuse back into one, so that's what I was referring to, Todoroki. And Bakugo had respect for Deku because in but he was stuck with the old man, so they so Endeavor her took him, and then they of course during that like battle thing, there was 100 Nomus like overwhelmed Endeavor, and Deku got separated into these six, and they fused. It was, or three of them created two different persons, and Todoroki and Endeavor saw like what or they're trying to, or he's sorry, I speak. So Deku was transformed into the Destroyer Ultimate, and they so he obliterated every single Nomu, and he notices there was a laying stain nearby, so he uses his power. So the hand grabs Hero Killer Stain, walks or actually holds him up to his eyes, and he says, "Time for you to be knocked out." As he just flicks one flick, Sorry about that. The My phone just decided to turn off by itself. So where was I? Oh, I remember. So the destroyer Deku flicked hair killer stains like so hard before he even hits the wall. He already got knocked out, and he like strapped like ropes around him, so took him to jail, and he got more popular, like a lot more popular, and he so they endeavor he's that much power. So did Todoroki in action, and ends up like he endeavors like, or he had his hand laying on his neck. He's like, "Sheesh, Deku, do you know that power?" As he looked up at Deku and he said, "Yep, I did. My power is is stronger than all everyone, as even all the pro heroes and their thing." And when he when something like shot on that Deku thing, so Todoroki, or next day, Todoroki asked Deku, "What was that last night thing?" And he says, "It's my ultimate form, Todoroki. It's the how." Because then he says like, "It's my ultimate form. Trust me." As Deku who and Todoroki were walking, they said, "He looks like a nice man." As Todoroki just denies it, like, "Well, if you hang around with him too long, you know why he acts like a certain way." Huh. Well, so he, or Deku, decides to say, "Yeah, but hey, it's your family. It's his nature, so don't judge him by his cover. It's a joke." Okay, so then then after they like arrived and did all that, the Deku just like immediately decided to say hi to everybody, and Deku just, or actually, Bakugo, who, and all of them complimented Deku for his bravery against a hero killer Stain. He he says, "Wow," and all that stuff. No, and the Deku just told them, "You're okay," or they. So then the final part of their test was against the teachers one, and Bakugo and Deku against All Might. Sorry if I'm going a little bit fast, but they all of it's just in canon. So, but then so he kicks, or actually Todoroki and Deku just sorry, I can't talk real fast. They so Deku and Todoroki won that match because he just knocked out or the All Might, because Deku uses his destroyer form, and because he flicked All Might all the way into a fake building, and he just has walked away with Todoroki, and of course the teachers and students were so shocked that see because Deku, who was a I don't have that image, but picture him as him, but more of without a claws and a horns and wings on the back, or or without a horns and claws, and more like him. So and so then that's going on. They during that camp park, Deku actually Deku got kidnapped instead of Bakugo, and they, of course, Deku is or that guy with a hand over his face said, or actually the guy with a hand over his face says, huh, the most powerfulest one of them all. How will you feel if we brainwash you? As he was in his like buffed down form, like that form. And Deku just like says, "Well, there is one problem," as he separates into 6 of them, and the yellow grabs them or holds him back as 3 of them fuse together. The other 3 fused to me, and then created a king one, like on him, and he says, "Well, you're in trouble." I see, and he flicks them. Of course, he escaped, and actually, Deku got teleported to All for One, the villain, and he says, the most powerfulest person in the entire world. I want your quirk. As he tries to use it, but it doesn't activate. Why? And he says, why is my quirk not activating? As Deku, in that form, says, well, let me explain it to you. Because you're in my presence, and whatever, or if Quirk is not mine is automatically is cancelled old except for mine because I'm giving him the kind of like a eraser eraser head's Quirk, but instead of looking at people, it's a lot superior. And he says, "Well, it's time for you to," as it's his signature ability called One Hit Flick. That's what it's called. And he just immediately flicked Deku, or no, not Deku, All for One so hard. Deku won that round, hands down. And, okay, I was trying to look for like, do you see his head? The one with like a demon horns? I was trying to look for a mask that on to put on him from Bleach. Couldn't find anything. So please send me like pictures that would fit good on like say him to like the comments, please. The so on that side note, Deku wins. All Might didn't have to reach his limit, and he flew back to his house and became back to the six and him. So they have just, or don't worry about the muscular. You're probably saying, but Jazz or Jazz, he, how about what happened to Coda and muscular? Well, in my what if, Deku has saved Coda before, and actually, the muscular was actually in at the USJ instead of Camp Park. I know he supposed to be at the Camp Park thing, but Deku just kicked his butt, so that's why Coda was not endangered, actually. So then Deku, just like how he spent rest of his days as with his family thing, like his own kids and his own wife thing, till the next day, they or everyone went back to the school, and yep, things just got weirder from here. So I will leave this off. I know that it's a cliffhanger, but hey, I have to do stuff too. So